Hi, I'm Robin Bensley. Welcome to Chow Time. Granola was invented in 1863 by a guy by the name of Dr. Caleb Jackson from Danville, New York. He was kind of a health food nut, and he also owned a sanitarium. Well, back in those days, it was called Granola instead of granola because it originally was made using gram flour. They bake it into sheets, and then they break it up into granules, so that's why it became Granola. But it was changed years later to granola for legal reasons, apparently. Dr. Kellogg might have had something to do with that. Well, then, in the 1950s and 60s, that's when the world was introduced to sugar-coated cereal. All that bad stuff came out. Of course, kids loved it. But then, the hippies saved the day. In the 1960s and 70s, granola came back because it was more of a health food. And in fact, it was enhanced because they started adding dried fruits and nuts and things like that. And so I'm going to show you my favorite homemade granola. I start with a giant pot because I'm going to make a big batch of this. As long as you're making homemade granola and it keeps in the cupboard really well, make a ton of it. So I'm going to start off with 7 cups of oats. These are old-fashioned oats. Don't use the quick oats. You want to use the old-fashioned ones. We're going to add so many cool things to this. I have a 1.5 cups of wheat germ. Toss that in. And then I have 1 cup each of unsalted sunflower seeds, chopped walnuts, unsalted, chopped almonds, unsalted, 1 cup of flaked coconut, then a little bit of seasoning. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. And the same of cinnamon. So you mix all those dry ingredients together. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to put together a very simple syrup to pour over it. I have 1 cup of maple syrup, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, the good stuff. 1, 2. Just whisk that together. So I slide my dry ingredients over, and we're going to moisten all of these grains and nuts. And mix it really well so you can get everything with a little bit of that syrup on it. So I lug my giant pot over here and divide this on 2 baking sheets. Then you just spread these 2 small mountains of granola all over a lightly oiled sheet. I just put a little vegetable oil on the bottom. And now all these wonderful nuts and oats are going to be roasted in a slow oven. It's only 300 degrees. So I'm going to pop these both in. Now those slow roast for 45 minutes, but every 15 minutes you want to swish them around a little bit, mix it up a little bit just so it doesn't burn. My granola is ready, so I'm going to pull it out of the oven. And what we want to do is let it cool down before I add the crowning touch. Now the reason I want to let this cool down is because I'm going to add 2 cups of dried cherries. And if I were to sprinkle these all over when it was still hot, it would plump the cherries up. And I want them to remain firm and chewy. But, oh, dried cherries in this granola are fantastic. But I can, even though it's cooled down, I could still smell all those roasted nuts. So good. So crunchy. The dried cherries make it. So healthy. So economical. And by the way, that Dr. Caleb Jackson, he thought that you should avoid all red meat, alcohol of any kind, coffee, tea, anything with sugar, and white bread. Well, at least you got one thing right.